Morning guys, Scott from SE Landscaping on the start of a new week, and the snow is finally starting to thaw. Just done a couple of site visits this morning and been emptying some bins, but apart from that there's very little we can do till tomorrow, and we can get back on some pruning and edging we've got to do. Hopefully, like I say, with the temperature supposed to be 8 to 10 today, we will get a thaw. The only issue is we don't, in certain parts of the country, we want a slow thaw. We don't want a fast one or rain to thaw it, because what happens is then we get flooding in places like York and Yorkshire and stuff. Then they end up with even worse problems. So we want the snow to go away, but we don't want it to go away really fast. That's the issue. And coming on to snow, that is the subject today: snow clearing. Had a couple of messages last week asking, do we do snow clearing? And the simple answer is yes and no. A few years ago, I invested in snow clearing equipment and a spreader, a towable spreader for the van, and I invested in some small kit for footpaths and things. Because when you go to premises, obviously you've got a big car park and stuff, but then they've got the small areas that you can't put a spreader on. And I did 2 seasons of gritting, and the first season when I bought the spreader, there was a lot of snow about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was okay, but there was some downsides. We did make some decent money, and it was quite profitable. The downsides are, the year following that, there was no snow, no ice, and it was a real mild winter, and basically the equipment never made anything. So in the area where I live in South Durham, I'm 10 miles from the hills, so I know a guy up in Barnard Castle way, and he has tractors and he has snow equipment, and he's been ploughing for years, and he does quite well out of it. He does doctor's surgeries and things. But he's in the prime location, because up in the Dales where he lives, they always get snow. Even in like mild winters they get snow, whereas in County Durham, where I am in southwest Durham, like I say, you can go 3 years and you can not have any. And there's a couple of guys here I have a friend who works for one of my competitors in the next town, and basically their gear is stood up for sometimes for a year and they don't do nothing, and they've invested huge in it, and some years they obviously lose out big style because the gear doesn't go out. So the problem with it is there's a huge investment, and that huge investment could potentially be stood for 5 years, or it could be out every year. It all depends on the way the weather is. Some years you get wet winters, but they're not icy. This year, yes, it's been quite bad, and some guys have made some good money in snow, but you've got to be prepared to that potentially, yes, you could hit the jackpot 1 year, but the next 2 or 3 you could lose out. Now, the reason, obviously I'd invested in the equipment, and the machine I bought actually paid for itself quite quickly. The reason I did get out of the snow was nothing to do with the equipment, because like I say, with it paid for itself, I could have just had it sat there. Bearing in mind, yes, you do need to clean them, and you can clean them as much as you want, but because of salt, gritting machines do rot quite quickly, and a lot of the working parts need replacing on a regular basis. That is something else I will say on the matter. Even the small pushy ones that you guys use for footpaths, just make sure you're power washing them out and clean them out on a daily basis, ideally, because if you leave a little bit of salt in there in the back of the van overnight, it's just corroding your parts, and if you're paying £400 or £500 for a handheld spreader, it ain't going to last long. So that's something to bear in mind. But one of the main reasons in County Durham that I had an issue with the snow wasn't the service we could deliver. It was we're in an area under Durham County Council. Now, Durham County Council is one of the richest councils in England, although they cry poverty all the time and blame the government for not giving them any money. They actually have £300 million in reserves, and have done for years and years. And unfortunately, I class reserves as things like snow clearing to keep the roads clear, but they don't. So they should be spending extra money and extra resources in the winter to get, like some other councils do, to get the roads cleared. Unfortunately they don't. They blame budgets and things, even though they sat on this huge amount of money. So it wasn't the fact that we couldn't service our clients properly, it was the fact we couldn't get to the sites. So you're stuck in traffic trying to service your clients, which are only 10, 15, 20 miles away. They're not 50 miles away. But getting to those sites when the roads are blocked because of traffic, because the local councils haven't ploughed or haven't cleaned roads, that is the issue. So that was one of the stumbling blocks I had. That was just, it was a bit disappointing. So what I do now is I subcontract to a couple of guys. There's a guy on my doorstep who does gritting, and in a big way, and there's also a guy about 25 miles away from me who looks after a couple of our other sites, and basically they look after the sites we've got. We still make a set amount of money, so we are still getting an income. We don't have to do anything, which is good. And the only gritting we currently do is for parish councils, which is a couple of areas where we do footpaths and things around the centres of villages, and we also fill grit bins. So that's the only gritting we do. But what it means is we're not out in the middle of the night, and like I say, somebody else is dealing with that problem for us. And because I've got these two guys in good locations, they haven't got the issues I had, where I was trying to get 20 mile on roads that our local council haven't gritted. So I hope that's helped. It can be a profitable business, but like I say, yes, we've had bad grit this year, but what's to, bad snow, sorry, this year. But what's to say the next 3 years we're not going to have any at all? And then you've invested potentially £10,000 per piece of kit, and obviously for the next 3 years that's just going to be sat not earning money. The other thing with salt is clients don't always want to pay, and if anybody's currently doing salting, you will realise that things like white salt, we used to buy it in 20-ton loads, and you're paying £70 a tonne. I mean one of my guys who does the grit, and one of my contractors, he buys it in 100-ton loads, but he gets it for a bit cheaper, so I think he pays £60 a tonne. But like I say, he's getting 5 wagon loads in at a time. But when we're buying bags to fill the grit bins up, like I say, we pay £90, £100 for a tonne of salt, and then you've got to pass that on to your customer as well as the labour charge. So you go to a commercial site, and sometimes, although the health and safety says that they need to help the staff get to work, some of them will say, oh no, we're not going to do that, we're just going to leave our sites as they are, and people can come and go and park outside if they don't want to park in the car park. So you do get that sometimes when you tell a customer that, yeah, you can fill 2 grit bins and you can come in and grit the car park, and you want £300 or £400 for filling the grit bins and coming in and just doing a couple of visits on the car park. It's like shock. And then when they realise that if you get a bad winter you might have to do that 10 times, and it's adding up to thousands, then obviously other larger companies, they're quite happy to pay it and they can write it off, but you do get some customers who are not interested in it. So I hope that helps, guys. Like I say, I've done it, I've tried it. There are good points, there are pitfalls, but it all depends on A, your area, B, what your local councils are like, because that's, like I say, that's the key. It's not always down to your service, it's down to someone else's service they're delivering that makes it possible for you to get to the jobs. And I hope that's helped, guys, and we will see you on the next one.